What is up? Thank you guys for tuning in to Satirical Crap for this week's installment of Janeski's English Vlog 2. So today we'll be looking at Miss Janeski's question, starting with a quote from Lord Acton. It says, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." She asked me to look at to what extent would Shakespeare agree with this statement. And she wanted me to use the play and my own experience as support. Um, I will not necessarily be looking at my own experience, but rather historical experience, just as a result of only being on the earth for 18 years and not necessarily having quite the interaction with absolute power as I guess a lot of people have. Um, with that being said, let's get right into it. So, my first point that I'd like to look at is just Shakespeare's opinion on this. I would like to argue that Shakespeare would agree with this 100%. That he would be completely down with this idea, and that is essentially one of the great themes of Macbeth. I think one of the biggest themes of Macbeth is the power struggle within Macbeth's life, Lady Macbeth's life, and just all the characters in general. To start off, when Macbeth hears of the prophecy and by the supernatural witches, he begins to kind of imagine himself as king, but even more so, Lady Macbeth does. I think as a result, this power, this idea of power and power through Macbeth, kind of begins to creep into her mind and almost corrupts her in the beginning more than it corrupted Macbeth. I think this just idea began to eat her alive and eventually caused her to tempt Macbeth into killing Duncan, and then eventually his demise as well. So, so Macbeth was given this prophecy and began to put these different thoughts in his brain, and different temptations from Lady Macbeth also added to those temptations within his brain. So Macbeth goes out and kills Duncan. I think this is the greatest example of power corrupting Macbeth in the play. So he hears that he could one day be king, and therefore goes and kills Duncan so that he will be king. I think this is a good example of power corruption. Not absolute power corruption, but power corruption. Because at this point in time, Macbeth didn't have absolute power, but he had the chance at absolute power, so he had some power. And I just said power a lot there. So he had this power in the prophecy, and then he goes and makes it happen by killing Duncan. And that leads him into this situation of absolute power. I think Shakespeare uses this in order to show what's happening in the kingdom. I think Macbeth kind of symbolizes the kings and the royal family, and then Duncan and Banquo kind of represent himself and the citizens. So I believe at this time Shakespeare was kind of fearful of the king and his power over him as a result of him being able to cancel all of his plays and stop all of his progress in life as a result of disappointing the king or making him mad. So Macbeth gets this power and he becomes corrupt, becomes evil. This can be seen in the death of Banquo. So Macbeth has already become king. He's already at the highest ranking you could be in the entire kingdom. What more could he want? And I think it's at this point that you realize that Macbeth is not satisfied. He's willing to go and get whatever he can to be the highest and nothing but the highest. And that's why he kills Banquo. So he hires 3 murderers to go kill Banquo, and in return solidify his spot as king and have no contention. And also he was going to try to kill Banquo's heirs in order to just be the face of the kingdom. And I think this demonstrates exactly what power corrupts absolutely means. Because in no way, shape, or form did Macbeth need to do this, nor did he have any right to. But I think because of his place at king and because he was the sitting king at the time, he realized that he could really do whatever he wanted, and it corrupted him down to his core. I think this corruption is seen in his fearfulness and just his willingness to go and kill one of his peers. Whether or not it corrupted him 100%, I'm not sure. I personally believe that it corrupts him on the power level, but not necessarily on the inner level. And I think that's seen in his grief and just his mourning in the death of Banquo, the death of King Duncan, the death of King Duncan. I think if he was 100% evil, then he uh, wouldn't have any grief. He would be fine with his actions. I do think it corrupted him enough to go out and perform these actions. You also asked me to look at this within my own experience, and I agree with this statement as well. I think power does corrupt, but absolute power corrupts everything. And I think that's partly why our government is shaped the way it is, with the checks and balances and just the limiting power that we do offer for the president. Um, so the first person I like to look at is Hitler. I think this is probably someone that comes to a lot of people's minds when they think of absolute power corruption. So Hitler gained power within Nazi Germany and then turned that into absolute power through a few different law changes. And when he had his absolute power, that's when he began to corrupt the world and put Jews in concentration camps to really change Germany and the world forever. So I think that's one great example of absolute power. A group of people we're going to look at as just historical leaders in the past, whether it be Caesar or Genghis Khan, as the song says. So Caesar is a good one to look at, just as a result of he gained power, and he had just the ruling over the Roman kingdom. I believe it was Roman, right? And so he had this great rule, and then he couldn't just stop there. He had to take over all the nations, and he became this great conqueror and conquered all of the known world. And I think this is just a good example of the fact that a little bit of power was never enough, and he had to go and get all the power. I think Kim Jong Un is a good example of this as well. Just with his absolute power in North Korea as a result of being a communist leader and forcing his people to do whatever he wishes and really being in control of other people's lives and just being this corrupt figure as a result of his absolute power. And lastly, we're going to look at just a very simple case in Aaron Hernandez, who is a former New England Patriots football player. Go Patriots! I got a lot of Patriots stuff in my room around me right now, and this is a very simple case. So as a result of being an NFL football player, Aaron Hernandez had a lot of great power within society and within his own profession, being one of the best tight ends in the league at the time. And what's really interesting about this is, as an NFL football player or an athlete in general in America, you have power over the media. You have power over people's own decisions. Like you really influence how people live their lives. And Aaron Hernandez took this power and not necessarily became absolutely powerful, but became corrupt. And as a result, killed a few people in a shoot and run, as you could call it, on multiple occasions. And as a result, would be put in jail, and he's still in jail today. So this is just an example of a person that had everything made. He had all the power in society and became corrupt and spent it all by corrupting himself and the world around him, and ended up in jail. So essentially today we looked at how absolute power corrupts absolutely and how power just simply corrupts. And I think they kind of go hand in hand because once you get a little bit of power, then it eventually turns into a lot of power and a craving for power, and as a result, absolute corruption. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, and I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day. This has been Satirical Crap.